Well, in nature, milk is only found in lactating mammals. Lactating meaning they are producing milk because they've just given birth to a young. Now, every species has its own weaning period. Now, humans, of course, it's between 1.5 years, depending on the environment, on where you live, and all that stuff. Now, mammals like mice, it's about 3 weeks. Okay, so to deal with the sugar which is found in milk and absorb it, absorb it, there is an enzyme called lactase. Lactose is the sugar found in milk, and lactase is the enzyme that digests that and splits it into glucose and galactose. Galactose is unique to milk. Okay, it's not found anywhere else, while glucose, of course, is found everywhere else. So usually, most mammals, when they approach weaning, that enzyme starts diminishing in their gut, in their small bowel. And human beings, usually about the age of 7 or 8, it actually dwindles, and by about sort of 9 or 10, it disappears altogether. I know you can say, oh, how come people can drink milk is okay? Well, certain tribes around the world, like the Bantu, for example, in Africa, and there are other tribes in Africa, and of course, there were people in Europe who somehow managed to have a mutation which preserved the lactase. So they were able to drink milk in plenty when they were adults. So whether the drinking milk came after they reverted to that state, or because they developed it because of the epigenetics. In other words, they were actually having herds of cattle, and they had plenty of milk, and of course that influenced the return of that enzyme. We don't know that, but we do know that there are certain tribes that around the world who did that. And when I went to Japan, it was with the intention in the 1970s, with the intention of studying lactase deficiency in Japanese children, because Japanese children typically cannot drink milk when they're teenagers and above. So basically, then I discovered that around the world, the majority of people around the world are incapable of drinking milk when they're adults. They get so you might say most people can drink coffee and milk, and basically yes, they can, but only a small amount. So most people, when they are challenged with a glass or more, or even have a glass, they actually will have abdominal issues, like, for example, borborygmi, which are noises, gurgling in the belly. They'll have cramps. They may have diarrhea. So there are lots of issues with drinking milk. Now, for those people who can drink gallons of milk and without any problem, okay. So what's the issue? The issue is that you don't really get enough. You don't get the right kind of calcium from milk. In fact, people who drink milk as adults, turns out that they have more fractures, hip fractures, than people who do not drink milk. Now, why is that? Because it's very, very interesting. Let me explain that. As I said earlier, there is the lactose is made up of glucose and galactose. Now, when you split the galactose, the lactose, you get that half, which is the galactose. Now, galactose cannot be used up by the body. It has to be converted to glucose by galactase, an enzyme which is found in the body, which converts it to be used. Now, there is a condition, which is a congenital condition, that babies can be born with deficiency of that enzyme, and they are in deep trouble. Why? Because they cannot metabolize milk, and they will not thrive, and they will literally die. So the answer to that is to give them like soy milk. And when I went to Japan, I came across a number of children who literally were brought up on soy milk. Now, what implication does that have to what we have at the present time, what we're talking about right now? Okay, the major deficiency of galactose is very clear cut. Okay, they either have it or they don't have it, but we don't know the minor degrees of it. They may well be okay to survive on their mother's milk and grow into adults, but not at full throttle. Okay, why is that? Because they may have some deficiency of that enzyme, galactase, which converts the galactose into glucose. We never test for it. So people who grow into adults as as tolerant to milk, and they do have the lactase into adulthood, they themselves may have deficiency of the galactase. Now, what implication does that have? Well, if galactose rises in our blood to a significant degree, what happens? It actually literally will cause osteoporosis and destruction of bone and retardation, depending on the amount that we have. So lots of laboratory animals, in fact, they do research on them, they give them galactose in the lab, and that literally will stunt their growth, and they will give them fractures, and they will not do well. So that really is a very, very subtle kind of thing that people don't realize about milk, and why they should not drink milk, and why the calcium found in milk is not adequate and it's the wrong type. So if you really want calcium, don't take calcium tablets, and do not definitely drink milk to get the calcium out of it. Eat the plants like spinach and leafy vegetables and so on that are rich in calcium. That's the best source of it. Cows do it all the time.